Oh, Skip Spriggs, thank you so much. How deeply grateful I am to the TIAA Institute for this remarkable award. Please convey my gratitude to all at TIAA. And thank you, Molly Broad, and all of the members of the Board of Directors and the Selection Committee. You know, Molly, you and the many fine leaders at ACE have been exceptional colleagues and advocates for me and for Trinity and all of higher education. So thank you on our behalf as well. I'm honored to accept this magnificent award in the name of one of my great heroes, Father Ted Hesburgh, not so much for myself, but for our entire community at Trinity in Washington. I'm very pleased that several Trinity trustees are here today. Our remarkable board chair, Sister Pat O'Brien, a sister of Notre Dame. Her day job as senior vice president at NEAS keeps all of New England on their toes. And thanks to Dr. Lois Wims, the provost at Worcester State University, who is a Trinity trustee. And I'm especially grateful to and pleased to share this award with my provost, Dr. Carlota Ocampo, who does the very hard work of leading our faculty through continuous curricular reform to ensure a great education for our students. Our faculty and staff work so hard to ensure the success of our students. They richly deserve this honor, as do the many alumni and friends who support us so generously. And most of all, our students at Trinity. They are the reason we get up in the morning, the motivating force for the hard work that went into transforming Trinity. Now, Trinity's story is indeed quite remarkable, and we're grateful that through this award, the lessons we have learned might be an example for other universities. A researcher studying Trinity in the mid-1990s, a time that I will simply say was the hot mess phase of our transformation, remarked to me that, and I quote, "Trinity is the canary in the mine shaft of higher education." Well, I didn't take that as a compliment. We didn't view ourselves as an expendable experiment. But at that time, we were dealing with the ramifications of our decision to focus more purposefully on the educational needs of low-income women in the District of Columbia. Race and social class are powerful disruptors in American life still today. And 20 years ago, many of our constituents were just shocked to think that large numbers of impoverished black women from east of the river in DC could earn the same degree, wear the same pedigree, if you will, as prior generations of Trinity women from the Brookline and the Main Line. This is the fundamental problem we often don't name in all of the discussion about widening collegiate access. Changing race and social class balances is deeply threatening to the old order elitism that is a thread of steel in institutional tradition. Cutting that thread to welcome a very different group of students, those who have lived on the margins, mostly students of color, risks outrage, resistance, and loss of support. Nobody says it that way, of course. What we hear is, "Oh, we'd love to enroll more low-income students of color, but can they do the work here?" We might remember Toni Morrison's Nobel Prize speech, in which she used this allegory of the Tower of Babel, and I quote from her. "The conventional wisdom of the Tower of Babel story is that the collapse was a misfortune, that it was the distraction or the weight of many languages that precipitated the tower's failed architecture, that one monolithic language would have expedited the building, and heaven would have been reached. Well, whose heaven, and what kind? Perhaps the achievement of paradise was premature," she said, "a little hasty, if no one could take the time to understand other languages, other views, other narratives," close quote. Despite oft-stated claims about wanting to provide more access, too often higher education seems more like that Tower of Babel, falling down because of our failure to understand the other narratives. A true commitment to access and success for new populations of students is not to let a chosen few in with the expectation that they alone will bear the burden to conform to our language and customs, but rather that the institution itself will learn their language and customs as well and incorporate those into a new canon of learning and institutional life. That's the essence of transformation. This is the reason why certain currently fashionable theories about access, such as undermatching, can be quite pernicious, since these theories urge admission for a fortunate few high-achieving, low-income students, a highly sanitized phrase, while expecting those students to adapt completely to the prevailing institutional norms, risking the loss of their own unique narratives. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of other students, predominantly African American and Latino, who are the future leaders of the new American majority, remain on the margins. In its most extreme form, institutional obtuseness about adapting to different student narratives leads to bizarre ideas involving drowning bunnies. Now, the quite remarkable news is that the canary lives. Trinity thrives today, but make no mistake about it, to make a college truly accessible to students who have lived on the margins, the institutional change cannot be marginal. It's not a fig leaf, it's a heart transplant, and it's very hard. But it's also essential, not only for the students themselves, but also for the sake of the nation that our new majority students must be prepared to lead. If higher education can't do social change well, who will? Father Hesburgh wrote in 1976, and I quote, "There are great moral issues facing young and old alike today: human rights, world poverty and hunger, good government, preserving the fragile ecosphere," close quote. He could have said the same things today. We're in a period of increasing political and moral crisis deeply rooted in the fear of great social change. The rise of the demagogue is a symptom of profound anxiety about the coming tsunami of demographic change. My students and yours are riding the crest of that wave. Of all places, our nation's colleges and universities should be the best possible examples of how to manage this kind of social change effectively. We are the stewards of one of the great pillars of a free society. Higher education is or should be the intellectual backbone of the nation, the certain trumpet of reason and fairness, the liberal conscience with a passion for justice, tolerance, and peaceful solutions to complex problems. We measure the effectiveness of our stewardship in how well our students carry these commitments forward through all the work of their lives. Higher education must be the great counterweight to government, particularly when the tendencies of the power class incline toward the repression of speech, intimidation of free press, the building of walls and rejection of refugees, the dismissal of basic civil and human rights as mere political correctness rather than essential moral principles for a just society. When politicians say they love the uneducated, that really means they fear the power of education as a democratizing force, which is also a check on abuse of political power. Throughout human history, education has been the best and perhaps only antidote to tyrants. Now, Hesburgh was unafraid to speak truth to power, from locking arms with Dr. Martin Luther King to confronting U.S. presidents on civil rights, war, and poverty, to making sure that the Vatican knew that Catholic higher education must be a place of academic freedom. If he were here today, he would compel us to take the risk of joining him as advocates and activists for reason and common decency in the face of increasingly irrational provocation. He believed that, and I quote again, "as a means of moral and intellectual survival, the essential task of the university is to form our students with that sense of moral responsibility and judgment required to manage change and to use knowledge for humankind's betterment and progress instead of for its destruction," close quote. Today's growing collegiate population of historically marginalized Black and Hispanic students the future leaders of the new American majority, must learn this with as much urgency, if not more, than prior generations. If the current political mood is any prophecy, the battles they will wage for civilization's soul loom large. Father Hesburgh's been gone for a year, but his influence lives well among us. We pay him tribute in our advocacy and example for our students now and the generations yet to come, for the imperative of education for all as essential for the good society, the society that lives in freedom and hope, protecting civil and human rights, proclaiming justice and peace. Thank you for honoring Trinity and me with this award in his name. Thank you. Thank you.